Hey, Steve.
Hi, Nick.
Current growth matches the deficit, it seems like, but only a fraction of the growth is taxed. So we'll still need to
Wait,
tax
wait, wait.
more and
Sorry,
spend less.
say that again. I couldn't quite understand you. Say it again.
Current growth matches the deficit, but
Current.
only a fraction of the growth is taxed.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. What do you mean?
So the Art Laffer is right that you can grow your way out of the deficit,
Yes.
but but only a fraction of the growth is taxed. So we
Oh,
still
I
have
see
to
what you're
tax
saying. Yeah.
more.
Okay. Right. So, what is your point?
So my point is that we need to uh, do more taxing because it seems like cutting spending is a pipe dream. Possibly, taxing corporations as individuals, removing tax deductions, and maybe adding a top tax rate for above a million to maybe 50%.
Well,
That might
okay.
cover the deficit.
Okay, Nick, great call. So let me take that on. First of all, here's the problem with the way you're thinking about this. First, you are right that it's very difficult to cut government spending. I've been doing this, folks, for 40 years. I got to Washington in 1984. I worked in the budget office under Reagan. I've been trying to cut the budget. I've made hundreds and hundreds of recommendations. We could easily cut $2 trillion out of this budget in a snap, given all the waste and redundancy and inefficiency of government. Um, but you try to close this gap with taxes, Nick, and I just think it won't work. If you raise taxes, what do you think the first thing that politicians will do? They will raise spending. Taxes cause spending. If you raise the taxes, they're just going to spend more. As Ronald Reagan said, it's like giving an alcoholic another drink. It does not work. It does not work. That's number one. Number two, taxes will hurt the economy. If you raise the tax rate, by the way, the top 1% in America, the rich people that Nick was talking about, and by the way, I appreciate his call. He knows what he's talking about. I just disagree with his conclusion because the top 1% pay right now 46.5% of the income tax. One out of 100 Americans pay almost half the income tax. The problem isn't that they're not paying their fair share, it's that we have a out of control budget. My friend Rand Paul, who I hope to get on the show in the next week or two, he's my favorite senator. He told me the other day that if we could just go back to the pre-COVID levels of spending in Washington, before we spent that $5 trillion, COVID is over, we could balance the budget. It's not that hard. We've got to grow the economy, and we've got to get the tax revenues up through the growth, and we've got to cut spending. There's $300 billion of green energy slush fund. $300 billion. The first thing Donald Trump should do when he gets in office is, guess what? We're not spending that money. The great call though by the Nick 1-800-848-9222. I'm hoping to hear from some Democrats. 1-800-848-9222. It sounds like Nick might have been a Democrat. I didn't ask him. I think we have on next Steve from New Jersey.
Hey, Steve.
Hi.
Loyal listeners of yours since day one when you got on the air.
Thank you.
I caught the whole speech of President Trump the other night.
Yes.
It warmed what's left of my cold heart when you talked about cutting dealing with the national debt. And
Yes.
unfortunately, he didn't spend enough time. But he did gloss over by mentioning the record tax revenues that the tax cuts brought in, coupled
Yes.
with the tariffs,
Yes.
where he had to impose tariffs. You see how he uses tariffs to balance the trade deficit, all right? But he mentioned that the revenue coming in, all right, that's how we're going to get the revenue side under control.
Yes.
It was working into 2020. Now we got to deal to dovetail onto your previous caller. You're right. We got to deal with the spending. He could have easily dealt with that in cutting regs and reduce the size and scope of government. Your first guest, Governor Doug Burgum, he rattled off 3 agencies that you can put under the auspices of the EPA and eliminate a lot of that wasteful spending. All right, I'll stop there so you can get to more callers, but what do you think?
Okay, Steve, great call. That's why I tell you, I've got the smartest listeners in America, and Steve is an example of that, and Nick are too. Steve's exactly right. You grow the economy, you get more people working, you get people off of welfare, so guess what? They're not taking out of the government. They're actually putting money into the tax system rather than taking out tax dollars. So Steve's exactly right that. and then you just start cutting the spending. There is so much waste. I mean, Medicare and Medicaid. Trump is right. We should not cut people's benefits, but my God, people are ripping off the system. Put those people in jail, get the money back. How much money was stolen from COVID, for goodness sakes? So I could go on for another 20 minutes telling you all the. Why do we have a Department of Education? Why do we have a federal Department of Education? Somebody show me how that has improved our schools. Because guess what? We've had this now, let's see, since 1978. That's what, 45 years or so? And the schools are worse today than they were when we created the Department of Education. The test scores are down. It hasn't helped. It's not creating smarter kids. Do we have time to squeeze in one more caller, Mr. Producer?